This conference will now be recorded.
We previously blogged about Simplified Analytics. And those were more about the end user being able to create their own Simplified Analytics once it's been administered and available to them. Here we want to focus in on making the analytic available to the end user and the administration process. So, for example, we know that a analytic that's been administered is available over on the right. You'll see the My Analytics tab. And we know that the end user now can go in, click on the plus sign, and develop their own simplified analytics. But how do we get to that point? How do we make it available to them? Let's look at that process. If we look at the PO cycle time fluid tile, you'll see that there are no analytics there. We're going to make it available. So a couple key things about simplified analytics. One, they're only available to fluid applications. And two is they start from a query, and that query is turned into a pivot grid, and that pivot grid becomes the simplified analytics. The key is it's controlled by the developer or the administrator, meaning they're only allowing the end user access to the fields and tables that they allow them access to. This is good from the perspective of it still allows the end user information, but it controls the queries, so you don't have to worry about it, a badly performing query, a runaway query, etc. So you achieve kind of best of both worlds. You allow self-service, but without any of the concerns of the issues that come along with allowing a lot of people access to query. So I have developed wrote a query and turned that query into a pivot grid already. That is a very simple query just on open purchase orders. And the other thing about simplified analytics is from a business context, they're relevant, meaning in this case, the user will go in, look at the PO approval cycle time. The next logical step might be, well, show me all my open purchase orders that haven't been approved. So that's what our simplified analytics is going to do. So let's take a look at that process. We can go to our navigator. The navigation actually is People Tools, Portal, Related Content Service, Manage Related Content. Okay. So once we get here, this is all of our Manage Related Content for references. We're going to go down to the bottom, click on Assign Related Content to an application page. Here we want to click on this button, which will then show us the fluid structure. We'll click on this. This shows us the fluid home pages, the fluid pages. We'll click on the fluid pages. If we scroll down, you'll see procurement operations. That's the actual home page for all of our procurement information, including that fluid tile we're looking at. So if we click at that, we go down to PO approval cycle time. That's the fluid tile we were looking at. We click on that, and it brings up our main screen where we're going to enable the simplified analytic. Here it's already enabled, it's a service. We want to go down here to the page level related content. So I'm going to click on the page, magnifying glass, and I know I'm looking for that fluid page. In this case, it's the PO app fluid, approval fluid. It's a service, and you have a service or a grouplet. Ours is a service. We click on the magnifying glass. We always select analytic service. Now it wants us to know what's the pivot grid that we're going to enable. So I made one, as I mentioned, down here called Simplified Test. Very simple query, simple pivot grid. And you can see here that it's all set. If we click on Configure, this gives you some additional options for security and a few other things. We're just going to, for the sake of our demonstration, click on OK. It's configured appropriately. And we're going to save this. So now what I've done is I've enabled that pivot grid, that fluid pivot grid for that fluid tile. So if we go back to our home page, we should go into our PO approval cycle time. You'll see procurement operations up here. If I click on that, I now have an analytic available to me. So if I click on plus, I'm going to call it Open PO. I want to use a chart and pivot grid. Click on next. These are the fields that I've chosen to give the end user access to. I'll click on also PO date and buyer. Click next. And you'll see now that it's generating my simplified analytic or my pivot grid report. So when that comes up, you'll see that the user can filter on the left and drill on the right. We're going to go ahead and click save. It's been saved. I can add it to a home page. I can also make it available to other end users. Okay. So if I get out, I go back to our home page, click on the PO approval cycle time. You'll see that now that report and pivot grid is always available. So the end user always have access to it. They can look at it, they can drill in, show me all my open purchase orders, which is a next logical question. And of course, they can drill into the details. It works just like any other pivot grid. If we created drilling URLs in our query, we could drill back to the source data as well, but this provides all the information we need. So really, very straightforward. Create your query, turn that query into a pivot grid, apply that pivot grid to your fluid, and your end user then has the ability to create their own simplified analytics. Again, giving you the best of both worlds of allowing end user access to information, but without any of the worries. So with that, quick video. Hope you learned something, and look for more vlogs.